President announcing yesterday on Truth Social that he's filed a $15 billion defamation and libel lawsuit against the New York Times. He's accusing the newspaper of engaging in a, quote, decades-long method of lying about him and his family and the America First movement. He added that the suit was being filed in Florida and compared it to other legal battles, claiming that he had secured favorable settlements in the past in those cases against ABC, CBS, and other outlets.
The announcement followed nearly a week of tension between Trump and the paper over coverage of a sexually suggestive note and a drawing given to Jeffrey Epstein for his 50th birthday back in 2003. The note was released by the House Oversight Committee as part of a batch of Epstein-related documents.
Joining us now, our chief legal analyst, Khalif Rhodes, to break this down. Khalif, in some of these other settlements, the president was able to point to specific examples that said, okay, this is where you lie. When you're talking about decades, how can you prove that, and is it almost a game of chickens?
Extremely unlikely. Let's start with a couple things. Typically, presidents avoid suing in this capacity because the First Amendment arguments that the paper would have would be, hard to overcome. The standard for defamation is not only that they knew that it was a false statement and you knew that it was false at the time, but also that you have actual malice. Because he's a public figure, that actual malice is the part. So even if you can get information, you can go through the laundry list to say, hey, this is a false statement. And guess what? They knew this was a false statement. Being able to prove that they did it and they made those statements with actual malice is the harder part. Yeah, President Trump mentioned a number of times that he's been successful. Paramount Global, the Disney settlement. Yeah, but there's 5 or 6 other times when those cases have been outrightly dismissed. Trump v. Chicago Tribune, Trump v. New York Times, Trump v. Washington Post, Trump v. O'Brien. These are the cases in the last 5 years that he sued folks, and the courts have thrown him out because there is no chance for the defamation standard to be met, what he's attempting to do. And he's one of the only couple presidents that even attempted to do this. The most recent one that I could think of outside of him is Theodore Roosevelt, 1913, where he sued a person after leaving office, and he won a jury trial, and they gave him an anonymous settlement of 6 cents. And so those are the types of things that you're looking at. Yeah, $15 billion is way different than 6 cents. But yeah, that's where we're at right now in terms of how the president is attempting to go after what he's labeled in the past as, and he labeled yesterday as the virtual mouthpiece for the radical left Democratic Party.
You know, when we talk about First Amendment, again, right, freedom of speech, and you look at that $15 million possible settlement claim, could a decision on this affect future journalism, opinion writing, if that First Amendment is, I guess, if it's a conflict here with this decision?
Well, the $15 million and the $15 billion are two different numbers, right? Those $15 million, that was the Stephanopoulos one in the settlement over the interview with Kamala Harris. Those were I think, where he pointed to the editorial discretion is what they attempted to say with the Harris interview. And he said, no, you were selectively attempting to make me and use me in a different light. I think those were clear. This is a wider brush. You're painting to, as you mentioned, years long, decades long of attacks against me, against my business interests. The book that the authors are connected to, the book was something that he took issue with. I take issue with the strategy. You're suing the New York Times, but where are you suing them at? In Florida. And so the very first thing that I would do is say, yeah, you can bring a lawsuit anywhere you want, but you're selectively choosing where to bring this. And because that selective choosing, I'll say, look, Your Honor, we're asking that this case be dismissed just because of that and nothing else.
Well, and excuse me, a spokesperson for the New York Times said, our journalists reported the facts, we provided the visual evidence, and we even printed the president's denial of that. So this is for the American people to decide. If there is so much precedent that has not gone the president's way, well, I mean, what do you see happening here? Do you just see this, okay, hey, it's another dismissal?
Well, the precedent is not that it doesn't go in the president's way. It's typically the presidents don't decide to bring these types of claims. I only found 5 other examples, and most of them were after the president has left office. And even in those scenarios, with President Trump's most recent history, that short precedent hasn't been successful. But most people are just making the decision not to do it. But it's not because he's the president. It's because he's a public figure. Being a public figure trying to get a successful defamation claim is just hard. It's hard because you have that actual malice standard that's different. If it's a regular person walking down the street and they want to bring a defamation claim, they just got to prove that it was false and that you knew it was false. Way easier standard. But I think what we're doing here is tiptoeing down the line of the president's approach, which is I want to stop people from making negative comments about me. This is a history of, and he's not walking away from those battles. So it's even not about the success or the failure in the courtroom. It's I'm going to take you to court. You're going to have to go through the process of filing a response, of going through depositions, going through interrogatories. There's a cost behind that. So even if I'm not successful in the eyes of the court, I'm successful in the eyes of the public opinion. I'm successful to my base who feels like you're not supporting me. And because of that, I'll just continue to bring these claims. We're close to the Sedition Act that was put in place in 1798. Those are the types of things where they were going after journalists and actually taking them to court for these types of actions. That was found obviously years later to be something that we should have never done, something that was a clear violation of the First Amendment. But at the time, the Supreme Court didn't even want to touch it because the court was packed with Federalists who actually passed this law. So I think that's where we're close to. But I'm looking to see how the court will react to this lawsuit.
We have 30 seconds left, Khalif. I don't know if it's enough time to give you a
Always
question.
enough time.
The legal advice then, is there not anybody in his camp saying there's no success on this, but as you mentioned, does it matter whether they're successful or not?
Well, if you're advising them, you're giving them what success looks like. And the first thing I always ask my clients is, what do you want to achieve with this? Is it a moral victory, like the 6 cents victory from Teddy Roosevelt, or is it, do you want a monetary win? And then you tell me what you want to do, and then I can try to figure out how to get you there. And if the likelihood of you not having success with an actual victory in court is there, I have a duty to tell you that. Hey, you probably aren't going to win this, but you can go ahead and file it. Now, I have an obligation to let you know up front the likelihood of your success and the likelihood of your failure. And then if your client is still happy with, hey, I know I'm not going to win, but I want to prove a point, I want to stick it to them. Now, if the case is clearly frivolous, you have a duty to tell them that as well. But I don't think this is frivolous. I just think that it's going to be hard to prove the actual malice.
All right, Khalif, thanks so much. We got another topic coming up, top of the hour at 9 o'clock.
Queen City News Plus. Just search Queen City News on your smart TV's app store.